Hi, welcome to the Shepherd's Rest Doc Talk. This is episode 144.
I'm Cam and this is Julie.
Yes, this is the Torah portion discussion for this week, and if you would like to listen to last year's, it is 98 A and B, and the year before that is 49 A and B.
Okay, I thought that we would start with a point in chapter 8. I was going to do a point kind of from each chapter.
Cool.
Yeah. Chapter 8, what I wanted to look at was, it is really kind of the inauguration of the Levites. Mm-hmm. Now, what's cool is in Leviticus 8 is the inauguration of the priest.
Right.
So where we had the people, Moses giving the authority to Aaron, here we have the people giving the authority to the Levites. Yes. It really mirrors the same thing. Mm-hmm. And I love that because as Messiah has died and rose again, he gave his authority to us, to believers.
Right.
So we're kind of
in the priestly role?
Right. In the earthly priestly role for the heavenlies, not for the earthly tabernacle, but for the heavenly. So as you read this, realize, wow, we've been given this same privilege through Messiah, and we've also been given the same type of responsibility through Messiah, and we cannot tread lightly on understanding that responsibility. Yeah. So in chapter 9, the one thing that I wanted to look at had more to do with, the Passover, and I think we've said this before, but the cool thing is we have them doing Passover and wanting to, but we don't see them commemorating Passover again until Joshua 5, which is when they're going back into the land again.
Right. Oh.
So here's what this tells me. Absolutely, the Lord is bringing them to the land because they're going in.
Yeah.
So how it should have been the first time when they came out of Egypt, right? Learned it and then go right in. He kept them a year so that we could go through at the proper time. Mm-hmm. But of course, we blow it, right?
Yeah.
Israel blows it, and then it's going to have the whole 40 years. So then they don't do Passover until Joshua's time to come back in. So, as we talked before, could there be a second, we know there's going to be a second Passover, again, going into the kingdom, because here it was going into the land.
Yeah.
Okay,
so just for pattern's sake, I was thinking about this when I was bike riding, and it was going through this. I thought to myself, okay, so for pattern's sake, let's think about Yeshua at Passover.
Okay.
All right, and Paul, who thought, this is it. It's going to happen. I mean, he even says, we're not all going to die.
Right.
Some of us are going to be changed. I mean, he spoke as if he thought we are going into the land.
It was imminent. It was at any point in time.
Right.
And he thought it was then.
Which makes me think, okay, so what happened that derailed that? And they didn't. I mean,
I see what you're saying.
You see what I'm saying?
Because when Paul was saying that, they had already crucified Messiah.
Right.
They'd already rejected that coming kingdom. So why did he think, well, for sure, it's going to be a return very quickly? That's a really good question. Like, was it something he saw, or was it just the understanding of reading through, well, obviously, has to be from reading through the Tanakh, the Old Testament, where it's talking about things will be soon. So then there's that gap theory, and I don't mean the Genesis gap theory, but not that gap theory, but the one that's like in Isaiah 60, where he reads, and then there seems to be this comma, 2,000 years put here, that type of thing, and he just didn't anticipate how long that might be.
Yeah. I mean, hindsight, we look back and we say, oh my gosh, Messiah's been gone 2,000 years. That's 40 Jubilees, just like the 40 years they wandered in the wilderness. You can see the pattern. Yeah. But Paul didn't know that pattern at the time. The only pattern he had was, we blew it, now we got to wait.
Yeah, from Stephen, exactly, who he helped stone or hold the coats for.
Right.
So
he just didn't have it all.
Well, yeah, and the thing that's cool about that is you said something that rung a bell. The 40 Jubilees, the 2 days. Look, during Paul's time, we weren't anywhere near 2 days of 2,000 years.
Right.
But we were way past 2 days for 2 days. Yeah. So the Hosea into 5 and 6, 1 through 3, didn't fit a pattern for the time in which Paul was speaking of. Does that make sense? Right. But now as time's passed, we are able to look back and go, wait a minute, that pattern works for here because we're further back. We're able, we've drawn back further away from the incident to be able to see it.
Right.
So the question is, how much further back do we have to go to see those other patterns that are required? We don't know.
That's why we go through it every year.
That's right, because we're going to see those patterns. All right, so in chapter 10, I was watching on Tuesday the bombarding that Hamas was doing with Israel. I couldn't believe within not a very long span, I counted 50, and I mean counted because I'm getting red alerts over and over and over, 50 rockets, missiles. I said rockets. Someone said like astronauts. It's like, no. Like,
well, the funny thing was on Fox News this morning, it was all rockets. I'm like, see, it's called rockets.
Yeah, they do call them rockets.
They're just not conditioned to hear it in those terms.
So missiles, things that go boom. Anyway, and I thought, oh my gosh, how great it goes with this week's Torah portion, because in Numbers 10, verse 9, it says, when you go into battle in your land against the enemy that distresses you, then you shall shout with the trumpets, and you shall be redeemed before the Lord your Elohim, and you shall be saved from your enemies. Now, first, I want y'all to know that this is a miracle that just happened. I can't see squat because I don't have my glasses on. It's just fuzzy.
Just one thing.
But
you said redeemed, and it's remembered.
Oh, remembered. Thank you. Again, I can't see that at all. So remembered. Yes, thank you. That's what I should do next time. So remembered. So I thought, gosh, you know, the Temple Institute has the silver trumpets.
Oh, yeah, they do.
Would you blow them?
Please?
Would you go blow those trumpets, please? So the Lord will come and remember and hear that and go, oh, yeah. You're going to do what I say, because that is what he says. So I keep waiting. And look, we may not even hear about it until much later. But I keep waiting to hear that, the Temple Institute,
blew the trumpets.
Yeah, Rabbi Richmond has been blowing the trumpets. And I'm just waiting to see, because he said, blow those trumpets, and this is what will happen. And we have those trumpets. They are in Israel. So I'm just saying, no reason to just keep them parked in the garage.
That's so funny.
Pull those babies out and let's drive them around. Okay, so I put my glasses on because I want to read something and not mess it up. Just something I having to admit that I have these. Okay. In what I was saying about blowing the trumpets for the war. So let's go look at 10 verses 35, 36. Anyone who's ever been in a synagogue or you do Shabbat with the Torah, you will go, oh yes, we know this. And it came to be whenever the ark set out that Moses said, rise up, O Yoved, and let your enemies be scattered, and let those who hate you flee before you. And when it rested, he said, return, O Lord, to the countless thousands of Israel. Wow, I even read better with my glasses. That was amazing.
That was good.
Anyway, so here the Lord goes out before them. Now there's two things I want to say about this. One is, this is the only time in their travels that I'm aware of, off the top of my head, correct me if I'm wrong, that the ark goes in front of them. Because they are heading to the land to go in.
Yeah.
The next time you see the ark going in front of them is?
When they go into the land.
Right. It's in Joshua.
Yeah.
When they're crossing the Jordan. Yes.
Can I say something cool about those two
Absolutely.
verses? So, did you know that it's thought that is right there, those two verses are another book?
Yes.
Its own book?
Yeah.
Because of the way the noons are backwards?
Right. And one of them,
They're
so
making
both of these
bookends.
are like, yes. And one's like fish, if I'm correct, the way one's upside down. So one is seen as it dies and then it resurrects.
You know what it reminded me of was Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And everything else just so happens to be about that story.
Yeah.
Like, that
So
would have
this
been
is-
enough.
Yes, so this is the whole story.
Yeah.
If you had allowed him to lead properly.
So for his people, this is like its own...
Right. If you had allowed him to lead properly, then 11 through
Yeah.
whatever would not have been necessary.
Right.
So on this hooking with the trumpets, the Lord's going out. And if you notice this in 25, it says, and let your enemies be scattered. So the Lord is not going to kill them. He's not trampling. What's he doing? He's scattering them. Mm-hmm. So what's the punishment on Israel? On us? We're scattered.
Ooh, yeah.
So it goes back to the idea, Esau and Jacob. One can be up, but not both. So anyway, this war idea, I started thinking, hey, so if we have this or we have this, right?
Yes.
The idea is the Lord has his people together and the enemy scattered. That's what's happening here.
Right.
But as Israel goes through the journey, they're getting scattered and the enemy is getting the upper hand. But when they get right here, what has to happen?
A battle.
A battle. So I would suggest that the war that we're seeing spiritually, this is where we are. This is the pattern of in history. We are at that equal power idea. And it cannot sustain that way. We have to have a head and a tail. We must. So a war's happening so that one will be scattered and one will be gathered. The point is when the Lord brings in his people and scatters the enemy, there's your on top, because that togetherness brings unity. So anyway, I just thought I'd bring that out with this week. As he goes before them, his job is to scatter the enemy. Not scatter us, bring us back in. But when disciplining us, he did scatter us. And now that's why it's going to the four corners to bring us
back in.
So
Very good.
Yeah, I just thought that was kind of cool. So I wanted to look at chapter 11. I said we kind of pick something from each. We may stop with this one. But chapter 11, when you read over, we have the grumbling because they're tired of manna, right? So, and the Lord really gets upset by this. I mean, like, if you remember back in Exodus 16, when they're like, where's the manna? Show me the beef, the meat, whatever, give us food. He wasn't upset. He's like, absolutely. You have no idea how I can provide for you as a loving father, so let me show you. Now he's been doing it, and now they're right?
And the difference is they don't have any quail this time. Like, he gives a manna and quail.
Right.
And somehow the quail disappeared.
Yeah, and I won't lie.
At some point,
I can't figure out, like, when. Did they have it for 2 weeks? Did they have it for just the one day? I mean, just the month? I don't know. I can't seem to find any commentary that really clearly says, but at some point, you're right, there's no quail.
Well, I kind of saw it as, so there's manna and quail back then, and then the quail fades out because it's so earthly, just represents the earthly, taking out the birds of the air, taking out any man-made doctrine. And now they just now have the spiritual, and they start complaining. Yeah. I kind of saw when they said about the cost. That's what really
cost nothing. Okay.
Caught my attention this year.
Yeah, so that was one that caught for me too.
Okay.
So when they get the quail, what do? In 11:32 it says, and the people were up all that day, all that night, and all the next day, and gathered the quail. All right, so this is showing that they're going back to Egypt. This is just what I got out of it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, he got so upset because, like Julie just said, they were complaining about no cost. Like in Egypt, there was no cost. They were in slavery.
Right. They didn't even realize it.
Right.
And so we had to put them back in slavery to show them.
Right. And it allowed, I mean, they were working. Remember when we talked about the two masters, the one master that made you work and no rest, and the other master that gave you rest and provided for you?
Yes.
Well, here we are. The Lord has now showed. They've now seen Pharaoh and they've seen the living God. They've seen both. And they are choosing Pharaoh. Yeah. They're choosing the slave because through the slave part, while they were a slave and had to work all the time, they still got to have their own personal lusts satisfied.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what they missed.
Yeah.
And it angered the Lord. So my big thing here is with the mixed multitudes help, lack of help. Like you don't need friends. When you have friends like that, who needs enemies, right?
Right, right.
But we see this idea of, to me, of Pharaoh versus the Lord. The two masters. And because they wanted to serve, look how long they worked. Remember, when can you pick up manna?
In the morning.
Only in the morning. Only until the sun gets too hot and it melts away. That's it.
Yeah.
And every day's provision. They are collecting for multiple days. They are working. They've gone back to the old ways. And we're going to see in Numbers 14 where the Lord is like, do not return to Egypt. Do not. Well, why would he say that? Because he's already seen the heart of so many who are like, but I'd rather, it's easier.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that something that we could be guilty of saying? I mean, if manna is the living word of God, How many times have you opened it? Well, I just don't feel like reading it right now.
I don't understand.
I'd rather go watch TV, or I'm gonna go do this instead, or I don't know. I just don't really want to read it. Huh. Okay. Well, in a way, that's us saying I'd just rather have the fish, the cucumbers, the leeks, the melons, the garlic. They'd rather have that, and that also made me go, yeah, because that's a variety. And if we don't dig deep enough in the Word, we don't see the variety. But it is rich in variety.
I bet manna supplied every nutrient, every vitamin, every mineral. It was perfect. It's all you needed. And that what you're saying reminds me of the people who want to dig deep in the Word and find out truth versus the ones who want to go sit on a pew every Sunday and just get a variety of messages. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
And you saying that about it having everything. So I can say this because I just went through a electrolyte little issue. I kept craving certain things, and the truth is, as you said, perfect Word. If we're actually eating it properly, we shouldn't hunger for anything else.
Right.
It will literally satisfy everything.
And you're full. And you're like, ooh. I remember at some points I'm kind of like, ooh, Lord, I'm stuffed. Let's
take a break
for a second.
Hold on, I need this to digest. Yeah, it's true. It's true. So, and there are other great things, but we'll hold on to those for another year. And
are you going to talk about Marium? And
no, because you did. What you want to say about
Marium? Oh, because I did on the
video. It's got a little cool video thing on it. And something else for that?
I just wanted to use a little bit of just a couple more things about it. Sure. So I wanted to talk a little bit why I think Marium would represent Israel, and because I said it, but then when I went back and watched it, I was like, I didn't really explain it, because Marium is the female. Aaron was the male,
right?
And we are the body of Messiah,
right?
You got Moses. When you read Aaron's rendition of this, how it goes down, and when he goes to Moses, he's like, "Don't hold this against us."
Right.
And that caught my attention. He saw them as a unit.
Yes.
And that's where we fail with once we, the church, see us with Israel, as Israel is speaking against Messiah, if we will intercede for them, Lord, they just don't see it. Don't let this understanding we're a unit.
Yeah.
And we need to be in unity.
Grafted in.
I don't know. So that was
great.
another thing that I kind of saw.
That's great.
And then you have Moses really interceding for her. Now she is outside for 7 days, which to me would be like the 7,000 years.
Yes, I actually have a note on that. I was like, so here's a thought. I don't know. And I can't find this. I know it says that she must go outside the camp, but what's her camp?
I thought it was the camp of Israel, wherever the lepers go.
But here's the thing. She doesn't have leprosy. She's said to have been healed immediately.
So she has to go outside as if she had leprosy.
Well, that's what I was wondering. But I'm going to throw this out there. She's in a Levitical camp. Okay. She stays in the camp that guards. So I started thinking, wait.
She lost her position.
Exactly.
Adam.
Yes, that was my thought.
Adam and Eve.
They got in trouble for not guarding. Right. Because she is a part of that family. That she is a part of. The water is said to be there because of Marium, because the Lord brought it on her behalf. Right. So I started thinking today, maybe she actually just got put outside of the Levitical camp.
Yeah.
But I just started thinking, wait, she's lost her position, which doesn't mean she's completely outside with a leper, because she was said to be healed immediately.
Yes.
But when you put it with Adam,
that's it. Yeah. That's it. Because Adam lost his position in the garden, guarding the tree.
Right.
He lost that. We've lost that ever since then.
Right.
And we won't get it back until the end of 7,000 years.
That's right.
And as he sets up the camps and it's just not a metaphor, but it's just a shadow.
Yeah.
A shadow of what we've lost and how we'll get it back.
And Adam and Marium in this case, and us, what do they both do? They shame their father. Well, he says, if the father spit in her face because she was, because she brought shame,
7 days.
Would it be 7 days? So I'm like, oh my gosh. So while Adam did sin and brought death, that also was shamed. It's just 7 days.
He's been out of the garden.
Right, which then made me go to Matthew 7, where he says, I don't know you.
Yeah.
Again, it doesn't mean you're going to hell.
Right.
It's I need a break from you.
Right.
Go. You'll come back in later.
Right.
But it's just going to look different.
Because you didn't properly represent Messiah.
Which is what he's saying.
Yeah.
You did it in my name.
Like, you did all this in my name, but it's not what I said.
To my ways.
Right. You were Toraless.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, there's one more thing I wanted to say about the unity. Aaron is saying this, he's pleading to Moses in 12 and says, please do not let her be as one dead when coming out of its mother's womb with our flesh half consumed. I'm like, see, Ephesians, right? One new man.
Yes.
The one body. He's seen, like, but now half is dead.
Right.
We should see that with Israel instead of, the Jews are all going to hell because they don't accept Jesus as the Messiah. How many times do you hear that instead of, oh my gosh, what can we do to properly represent? So it was her, Lashon Hara, her sin against Moses' authority that caused the leprosy, right?
Right.
Well, Aaron said it was our sin. Aaron took part in that.
Right.
Well, he wasn't the one denying his authority. He listened and was like, What did we do? As the church, we deny his authority because we throw out Torah.
Yeah.
And he's the living word. So are we not denying his authority as well? And see, Aaron saw that it was a joint effort, and we need to see it's a joint effort too.
And Moses is the one that prayed for them both.
That's right.
Before the Father.
Yes. Isn't Yeshua the one that brings the northern and the southern together?
Gosh.
The two sticks?
And that's the two that they're fighting over. They're fighting over Moses. He's on the praise for him. The two, Israel and the church, are fighting over Yeshua.
Right.
He's the one. It's the same thing.
Yes. Yeah. This one says, nope, it's our Messiah. And this one says, no, our Messiah is coming.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
It's great. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you have a fantastic week. Shalom.